Okay, so today we're going to start to sew the pillow together, and there's a couple different stitches you need to learn to do. I'm first going to show you how to thread a needle. On your project, you want to get thread that matches. When you get your thread, you'll have the eye of the needle, and you're going to take your thread and you're going to make a little loop like this. Make sure you guys can see that. Take this little loop and kind of pinch it, and then put it right through the eye. You'll see it kind of come out. And you got to be really quick to grab it. Okay. Leave about 6 inches of end on your needle. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to sew one side. If you're not so sure you can sew a straight line, use a ruler and one of these fabric crayons and draw a line across your fabric. And this is what I'm going to follow when I start to stitch. Now, there's a couple different stitches we're going to learn. We're going to do a running stitch, also called a basting stitch. And that stitch kind of looks like a straight line, like a dash. The other stitch later on we're going to talk about is a slip stitch, or what we call a blind stitch. And that stitch is used when we have a seam we don't want to see the threads. And then I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do a back stitch. Your needle and thread. Okay, when you start with your needle and thread, you're going to first put your needle in, and you're going to tie several knots in the thread. And you want to do this so that later on it doesn't come unraveled. I can always say you can't put enough knots in the end of it. Just did a quick 3 knots there. Now with the basting or running stitch, find your line, and you're going to go through both pieces of fabric, and you're going to go in and out, back and forth, almost like you're weaving. And I tend to kind of pucker up the fabric like you see. And because it's a batik and there's 2 pieces of fabric, sometimes pulling this needle through is a little bit tricky. So just take your time. Don't let your strings get tangled. Now you'll be able to see this basting stitch a little bit better from the back. And you can see it right there. It's kind of a zigzag. Now you don't want these any farther apart than probably a 1/4 inch. I have mine closer than that. The closer the stitching, the better that your project will stay together, and the better that it'll look. If it's too far apart, it's going to be sloppy, and you don't want sloppy. So I'm going to go back and forth. Now what I did there before I started a new section of stitching is I back stitched. I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, let me zoom in on my camera a little bit so you can see. Alright, so I'm zigzagging in and out with my basting or running stitch and pulling my thread through. And we can see where my threads are going in a nice line. Now you can see right here to here there is no thread. And what I'm going to do is take this string and go back. So I'm going to go back and then continue once again. And you want to continue to do this because as you do this, what you want to do is kind of lock those threads in. So if maybe it did come unraveled, there it goes, back stitch, that it wouldn't go unraveled all the way because you've got those back stitches that kind of lock your thread in. Once again, back stitch and then continue. It isn't difficult. I think the hardest part about it is probably maybe pushing the needle through the thread. If you didn't get all your wax out of your batik, that fabric is real stiff. And see how sometimes I'll use the table to push the needle through? That's because my hands get sore. And go again, back stitch. So watch this video if you forgot how to stitch pillow together. The next video is going to show you how to do the slip stitch.